Good morning, everyone. We're going to stall for a moment while we let a few more folks sign in.
Well, I guess if you're gonna sit up there.
Yeah, just Joan and Mike on that call, I think is my right. Welcome, everyone. We're just stalling a little bit while we wait for another member or two of the board to show up, and then we'll get going right away. Thank you for being here. And just for the members of the public who are joining us for the public hearing, when we get to that point for the folks that are online, we're going to be using the hand raise function to put you in order. So when I open the public hearing, you're going to want to go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to speak. And then Dan and I will work through those in order. They'll show up on our screen at the top corner from left to right in order. So if you want to poke around for the hand raise function, it should be under the reactions button on your Zoom tab. There's Carolina, so that makes 5, right?
I'm also on my way, so I should be there soon.
Thank you, Carolina.
And Randy.
Okay. So once Randy's connected, we'll go ahead and get started. Since we have folks here and we want to respect everyone's time.
Randy's here.
Okay, sir, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 11th meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency Board. We have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and do introductions for the record. I have a little bit of a distance issue seeing everyone on the screen, so I'm first going to just call through the board roster on the website so I make sure I don't miss anyone and ask folks to do introductions. We do have a new member, so if you could say, make sure you say where you're from, and if you know how long you've been on the board, just for the benefit of our new member, that would be wonderful. And I'm going to save him for last so that he can hear from all of us. So I'm Jim Cooper, Chair from the City of Olympia. Randy.
Randy Netherland, Mason County Commissioner, and I don't know how long I've been on this thing.
Long enough, right? Robin.
Robin Vasquez, Lacey City Council, and I've been on the board for a year.
Carolina.
Carolina Mejia, Thurston County Commissioner, and this will be my 2nd year.
Great.
Or no,
Gregory.
I've been on here 2 years. Sorry.
Oh, 2 years. Okay, thank you. And there I see Greg. You're up.
Hi, sorry I was a little tardy. Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County. I believe this will be the beginning of my 5th year serving on the ORCAA Board.
Great. And our Vice Chair.
Oh, yes, and our Vice Chair. Thanks.
Joan.
Good to see you, Mike.
Joan Cathy, City of Tumwater, and I think I've been on 8 years at least.
That sounds about right. Jill.
Yeah.
Good morning. Sorry, scrambling at the last minute, and the Zoom link wasn't on my calendar, so then I was digging through trying to find it. Jill Warney from Grace Harbor County, and this is beginning of the 3rd year.
Great. And I should say I stalled because I couldn't remember for myself, so I needed all that time to calculate that this is my 12th year on the ORCAA board. And then I'm pleased to introduce our new member from Clallam County, who's just moved over from the Port Angeles City Council to the Clallam County Board of County Commissioners, Mike French. Say hello and tell us about yourself for a moment.
Hello, thank you. I'm really excited to be joining this. I am indeed newly elected, so I'm still, there's a lot of learning happening in my first month here at Clallam County. But yeah,
Hosing.
it is. And it's, it's information and relationships, right? Like I have a lot of learning to do on both sides. So Yeah, I was born and raised here in Port Angeles. I've been an elected official for 5 years, but they pointed out, I was on a city council, which was a much lower. I really enjoyed being on a city council, but I'm kind of moving into full-time work here at Clallam County, which is a little bit of a different experience for me because Port Angeles is a pretty small town. So, I'm really interested in clean air as someone who learned that he had mild asthma in his adult life. And so I'm really excited to be working together with all you. I had an opportunity to sit down with Jeff and kind of get a little bit of an overview on the organization. So I'm looking forward to some more formal onboarding and learning a lot more and participating with the agency.
Great. Well, it's good to see you and welcome, Mike. It's great to have you on the board. So with that, I'll turn it over to our director, Jeff, and ask him to introduce himself and our staff team.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Johnston, the Executive Director of ORCAA, and we've got a good staff turnout today, joined here in the room by Robert Moody, our Compliance Manager, Odell Hadley, our Senior Monitoring Specialist, Mike Schultz, Compliance Supervisor, and then on Zoom, we've got Debbie Moody, our Office Manager, Lynn Harding, our Financial Services Manager, Mark Gooden, our Permitting Manager, and Dan Nelson, our Communications Manager. We also have Lauren Wybrew, Engineer, Bryson Downs, Air Quality Specialist, and I think I saw Tiffany Flores, our new Record Specialist here as well.
Great.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is our council on?
Jeff Myers, do we have Jeff Myers or Mike Throgmorton? No,
Doesn't look like it.
no,
Okay. Well, we'll say hi to them if they show up.
yes.
And then I just wanted to make a note for the board's benefit that we are short one position right now in Pacific County. So we're waiting for the Pacific County Commissioners to appoint a new member, and then they will send us an appointee to the ORCAA board. With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda for this morning.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the agenda as posted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any amendments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to the chair report. So I just have one from the Personnel Committee. So we're in the process of conducting the performance review for our executive director at his 1-year mark. So far, that's going well. We've initiated meetings with the management team. Later today, we have a check-in with the full staff team. And then in February, we'll have an opportunity for the board to discuss its view of that performance and also have a chance to talk with Jeff about it and make some plans for the future, hopefully. I also wanted to point out that Jeff has done a great job updating his performance measures that we negotiated with him almost a year ago, or maybe more like 3 quarters ago. And so he has sent that to the Personnel Committee, and later today or tomorrow, he will send that to the whole board. And I'd just like to invite folks to make sure they have a chance to read that and ask Jeff any questions prior to coming to the February board meeting so that we can make sure our conversation is focused on the overall performance. So with that, any questions about the performance review? Okay, thank you so much. That takes us to public comment. So this public comment will be outside of the public hearing around the rulemaking for outdoor burning for recreational purposes. So is there any public comment? If you'd like to make public comment, go ahead and raise your hand online or just make a nod to me if you're in the room. Okay. Okay. So I have 2 folks in the room for public comment. I don't see any hands raised online. So whichever one of you gets to the podium first, it's your call. So, sir, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
And just to be clear, this is not for the burning rule. This is general public comment. Okay. Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure if I said that very clearly. So you're both here for the public hearing on the burning
Yes.
rule. Okay, great. Okay, so hearing that, we have no public comment that I know of. Dan, just double check with me. I don't see any hands raised.
Nope, nothing online.
Okay, thank you very much. So then that takes us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, comments, or polls? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so before we go to our next agenda item, I just wanted to take a moment and ask our counsel, Jeff Myers, to introduce himself.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Myers, legal counsel for ORCAA.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Okay, and so that. Go to Robert. With that, we're going to go to our public hearing for ORCAA Rule 6.2.7 and 6.2.8 amendments. I'm going to go first to our director, Jeff Johnston, and then we'll open up the hearing. Jeff?
Okay, well, thank you, Jim. So I just wanted to say a few things, provide a little bit of context for this rule proposal. So Dan, if you could put the slides up, please.
Okay, you may. That's showing up.
Okay, yes. I believe so.
Are you screen sharing?
So, all right, so hopefully everybody can see that. Again, just a few slides, just wanted to take a few minutes to provide a brief summary of this rule change that's under consideration and the topic of the public hearing this morning. So, okay, next slide, please. A little bit of background on this issue. So,
Let's have him change his view real quick.
okay.
Hey, Dan, you're on present. We see the presenter side of the view. So you know how to
Oh.
switch it at the top? There you go.
Great,
Thank
great,
you.
Thank you. All right, so again, a little bit of background. So during the late 1980s, urban Thurston County exceeded federal air quality standards for particulate matter. And particulate matter, as some of you probably know, has a lot of different sources in the atmosphere: cars, trucks, industry, and most importantly for Thurston County, indoor and outdoor burning. Indoor burning or home heating was the primary cause of particulate matter issues in Thurston County. The episodes with the highest levels of pollution were during wintertime, the wintertime stagnant conditions with lots of people heating their home with wood stoves. So ORCAA worked closely with the State Department of Ecology, with the US EPA, and brought the area back into attainment for PM standards. And we've been meeting air quality standards for over 25 years. So some of the actions that ORCAA and our partners took included instituting wintertime burn bans, banning the burning of yard debris in urban growth areas. We've changed out more than 600 old uncertified wood stoves in Thurston County alone. We've had also significant outreach efforts to educate the public on the importance of burning cleanly, using dry firewood, and so on. And again, the ban on recreational fires was part of that effort. So all these efforts have paid off. And if you look at the next slide, which shows air quality concentrations let's see, let me try if I can minimize this so we can see the slides here. So here in the room. So this shows the measured values of particulate pollution at the Lacey monitoring site, which is our Thurston County monitor. And what you see is on the vertical axis is particulate matter concentrations. And then on the horizontal axis are dates. And those, so basically January of each year from 1996 through January of 2022. And these vertical lines are the Januaries. And what you can see is that the peaks in particulate matter concentration tended to be in the wintertime. Again, when we've got a lot of people using their wood stoves, fireplaces to heat, stagnant wintertime conditions. So what you can see is that there's been an overall downward trend in this. Except for the past number of years, there's been a number of peaks which don't correspond with January because they typically occur in the summer or fall when we have these wildfire smoke impacts. And so those are showing up again in the summertime. So again, the key message here is that since the 1990s, particulate matter pollution levels have declined significantly in Thurston County, particularly in winter months. So, okay, Dan, next slide, please. So just a couple reminders about this rule change. So the rule change would allow recreational fires, that is campfires, within the city limits of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, making the rules for these cities consistent with every other city in ORCA's jurisdiction, and in fact, every other city in Western Washington. However, and very importantly, the air quality regulations regarding nuisance smoke and burning of prohibited items, such as garbage, remain unchanged. And in terms of fire dangers from the proposal, we've worked very closely with fire departments in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. All of them are in support of this effort to streamline the regulations and focus on enforcement for problem areas. Again, the proposed rule will not change local fire safety, zoning, or building codes, and fire safety will not be impacted by this proposal. So again, but regardless of the outcome of the proposed rule change, ORCA's compliance efforts will continue to focus on enforcement of nuisance smoke and illegal trash burning complaints, just as it has been for the past many years. So a commitment to clean air won't change. So that is what I have to say, unless there are any questions from board members.
I do. I have maybe a clarification. You stated that this changes, the allowance of it. Does it not just change our enforcement of it? We have no authority to change city or county code.
Right. So, yeah, so it does not, I mean, we haven't been enforcing those. I mean, we enforce ORCA's regulations and we work certainly closely with the cities and the fire officials. But again, ORCA, because we've got, again, we're a small agency, our enforcement of the existing rule is based upon complaints. So unless we get complaints from folks about recreational burning garbage, other things, then we don't know about it. So that will continue.
And I'll add to that too, Randy, that my understanding from our discussion is that all cities and counties have the power to institute more stringent fire safety regulations within their community above and beyond ORCA's air quality regulation.
And that's what I was saying too, but the statement that was made is that we're changing the rules, for those cities. In those cities, we want to make sure that we're just changing our own rules, how we enforce it. We are not changing the rules of the city.
That's correct.
All I was
Good clarification.
clarifying for those public members that are in there that are gonna be questioning what we're doing. We're changing our rules, not changing any rule or code or anything at the city level.
Good clarification. Any other questions from the board?
I have just a follow-up on that, Jim, if I could. And I was just wondering, so there's no other clean air agencies that have a similar no campfires burning rule. I was wondering if you guys know if any municipalities or counties, to Randy's point, do have, prescriptive rules that are not based on, the existing, the dryness, the fire safety conditions, but just prescriptive rules like we're eliminating here.
Not based on air quality. If I remember right, I think the city of Tumwater has something in place, and I'm not going to about something in place about nuisance smoke. But again, we haven't seen anything similar to ORCA's regulation. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Greg. And Robert, other ORCA folks who might have more to add to that response to Greg, please jump in.
Yeah, I know none of the other local air agencies have any regulation banning recreational fires. There are a few doing research into municipal codes throughout the state. There are some cities that have stricter fire safety guidelines, setbacks, and requirements to make sure that recreational fires are conducted safely. But there was no other air quality regulations that we found.
Great, thank you.
Okay, are we ready for a public hearing? Great. So I'm going to go ahead and ask folks online, if you'd like to speak in the public hearing, to go ahead and raise your hand. What I'll do is ask I'm going to do the two folks in the room first, and then I'll ask Dan to call the names for me on the in order for the folks on Zoom, just to save my eyes a little bit of squinting, if you don't mind, sir.
I can do that for you.
Okay, so whichever one of you gentlemen would like to go first. I'm seeing just two hands. I know there's at least a couple more maybe. So why don't we try to keep like 2 to 3 minutes or so? And if I feel like you're going long, I'm going to kind of lean in and start nodding at you. That'll be my symbol, okay? So whichever one of you'd like to go first, please step up to the podium and tell us what you have to say. Thanks for being here.
And I'm sorry, Jim, they should identify where they're.
Yeah, tell us your name and your geography, if you don't mind.
Hi, my name's Terry Carr. I've been in Lacey, homeowner there 45 years. And I saw the article in the paper and I was just embarrassed my children, my grandkids, because we've had campfires in our backyard every summer, 45 years. I've taught my kids how to roast marshmallows, hot dogs, whatever. I was really embarrassed that we were breaking the law. I didn't even know about it. It was stupid, really stupid. But the way I read this, you're only changing it because of the homeless camps, because you can't stop them. Is this true?
So we're not going to do a back and forth now, but after we go through the comments, then we'll ask the board to respond or ask questions regarding what
the way I read it though, the reason you're doing this after 45 years is because you can't shut down the homeless camps, period. And my kids, I taught them how to build fires my whole life. And I didn't know it was illegal. Now, how much would I have paid for a fine if you caught me and my kids roasting wieners in the backyard? How much is the citation? Do you know?
So we'll come, we got to move through the people, so we'll come back around and ask questions
Okay.
and respond.
All right, well then, that was about it. I'm for the change, of course. It's kind of stupid. Couldn't even believe where you had this thing. And now my kids and my grandkids, I guess I have to tell them I was embarrassed. But you are changing it, I think, because of the homeless camps, I guess. That's the only reason I see. And that was about all my comment was. The second one might be on those 6 or 8 days of stagnant air and you ask us to shut our wood stoves down. Are you ever going to control the Burger Kings and all the commercial smoke? Or just us? That's all I want to say. You can control me, but I guess you can't touch Burger King, huh? And all the other thousands of restaurants. And how much is that fine if I don't shut my wood stove down? That's my second thing. So I guess you get the homeowners, I guess.
Thank you for your comments. And I'll also say, if we don't address all of your questions in our comments right after the hearing, our staff will be willing to go beyond just the rulemaking questions as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Morning, Jim Overlander, long-term residents of Tumwater. I've lived in Thurston County over 50 years. In professional career, I worked in the environmental field for 40 years. Spent a lot of time in the counties of your members. I'm opposed to this change. What I've seen in the growth is property lines have shrunk. We have more duplexes. We have more high rises. The smoke from a campfire has no boundaries. It can be in your neighbor's window, especially as the fire dies down. It's great if it's a clean fire, but so often some kid will throw in plastic bottles or the residue in the fire pit is a 6-pack plastic. So you have pollutants in that air. I think with our increased density, when some of the communities have dropped to 2.5 feet, I just wonder, how do you lay a ladder up against your house to paint it if you got 2.5 feet? So I think our fire danger with campfires has gone up exponentially. Again, if a clean campfire in the right weather and the right fire ventilation, it works. But I don't see that. You visit a state park, you visit a Forest Service campground, you start a fire, and then the residue is some plastic, and so you have toxic air. I filed a complaint on our neighbor last summer who moved in. Kids are burning the boxes and burning the bubble wrap. That smoke hung in our house for some time. I filed a formal complaint, never heard diddly. I don't know if an inspector went out there, if they got a letter. I supervised inspectors for a number of years, both at the state level and at the city level. And I always required my people to get back to the citizen. You may not be the answer he wants, but you be responsive. You need to improve that action. Also in your public notice, I think you need to do a little work. There was nothing in there what time this meeting occurred. I don't see on the page I printed any ADA accessibility. It says the normal board time. When I looked at the board minutes, it didn't say that the board convened at 10 o'clock on a certain day. So your outreach needs a little work. So again, I'm opposed to this change. Our density has changed dramatically. A campfire in Vale has no meaning to a relationship to a campfire in a tight residential neighborhood. Thank you
very much. Okay, so that concludes the comment in the room. So Dan, if you can call the names in order of hand raise from the Zoom room, please.
Okay, I believe Mark Bach was first.
Okay, let me turn on. Hi, my name is Mark Bach and I live in the city of Olympia. I wanted to testify in favor of adopting these rule changes that would allow recreational fires in this area. The information brief on these rule changes illustrates how the air quality issues that were the initial impetus for the ban have been largely resolved. I wanted to kind of speak about the innate physiological connection to fire, however. Going back at least 1.9 million years, our connection to fire has had many physical effects on our development as a species. This partnership has not only brought about physical changes, but physiological connectedness as well. The moving fractals in a bed of wood burning coals, for instance, elicits a parasympathetic response in our autonomic nervous system, similar to viewing a nature scene or meditation. This response increases feelings of pleasure and calm and reduces our stress levels. The ban has hampered our ability to connect to this part of our humanity. So that we can renew and strengthen this connection, I urge you to support these rules that would allow recreational fires in the Olympia, Tumwater, and Lacey area. And obviously wanting to maintain rules about and development of education and such about how to do this appropriately so that it doesn't, it has, it's safely done and has those rules in place. That's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's next, Dan?
Ty Gundel.
Hi all, hopefully folks can hear me okay. So I don't have video, just hoping for help with smooth connections. So let me know if I start cutting out, but good morning, everybody. My name is Ty Gundel and I am a co-director with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, also known as OLIMAP. OLIMAP is a local homeless services organization that provides outreach services for people living unsheltered in Thurston County. And I'm here this morning on behalf of OLIMAP to share our support for this proposed rule change. OLIMAP has provided outreach-based services for people living in unsanctioned camp communities in Thurston County for many years. And as ORCA staff are pretty well aware, one of the most difficult challenges we have worked to navigate with these communities are those associated with particularly hazardous burning. Usually associated with survival, unsafe burning practices have serious impacts both for the people living at the camps and the broader community. And one factor that has actually acted as a barrier to finding more effective strategies for addressing these challenges is the current ban on burning, which also doesn't separate between survival and recreational burning. And simply put, just when there are community members who are burning for their own survival, telling people that they cannot burn in any way, no matter how relatively safe the method is kind of a non-starter. Whereas educating people about what burning is more hazardous and providing education about and access to safer alternatives is a different story, at least in our experience. OLIMAP believes this rule change will have positive impacts on the broad community, including in ways that are in no way related to homelessness. But the main reason OLIMAP supports this proposed rule change is because we do believe it would pretty immediately remove barriers to pursuing more practical and promising efforts for addressing these types of challenges. And for instance, as an example, thanks to the support of both ORCAA and the Regional Housing Council, OLIMAP is currently working to launch a new program that's dedicated entirely to addressing these issues at camps. And knowing that people living unsheltered may find themselves using survival or fire for survival without having access to safer alternatives, some of the local fire officials in our area have expressed interest in working with us to provide education for people living in camps on how to use fire for survival in the safest ways possible. But the current regulations present some barriers to this sort of safety training happening. And these kinds of changes taking effect would make this a more possible strategy to explore. So that's just, one additional example of how this might both impact homeless response, but also safety for our whole community. And overall, we just really see this change enabling our community to focus limited resources on harm reduction, education, promotion of safer practices, and focusing energy on addressing like the really truly problematic hazardous burning. So just to close, I just want to end by just sharing also our really sincere gratitude to all of you guys for even considering this rule change regardless of the outcome. I think we all know that making changes to longstanding regulations, no matter what the reasons for concerns are, or if it's about practicality or relevance or safety, that it's challenging to do. So just really see what you all are doing and seeing that you're recognizing something that may not be working as effectively anymore and exploring making changes as something that's really admirable and isn't done enough. So thanks for leading by example in that. And thank you for hearing all of our stuff today.
Thank you. Who's next, Dan?
Steve Brooks, and just a reminder to the people that just joined us, if you want to comment on this, please use the raise hand feature in your toolbar.
And Steve, real quick before you go, I just want to point out that Commissioner Mejia has joined us in person and moved out of the Zoom room. So if you saw her leave, she's sitting with us in the room now. Go ahead, Steve.
Good morning. Thank you. Steve Brooks, the fire chief at Lacey Fire District 3 and president of the Thurston County Fire Chiefs Association, as well as Washington Fire Chiefs. But I just wanted to echo some of the things that Ty said and express my and the larger fire service appreciation for the collaborative approach that the ORCAA board and staff have taken to this change. I know it was not undertaken lightly, and I know there are complexities, and I respect some of the concerns that were brought by those in opposition. I will say that we in the fire service have largely had our concerns addressed. Our biggest concerns were the confusion, both the confusion that has existed up to this point. I think it was alluded to by one of the early commenters about not knowing that they had been violating a regulation for so many years. We find that to be largely true in the municipal areas. Candidly, as a fire district for us, it's been uniquely challenging because we have three different zones. We have the incorporated city area, the urban growth management area, and then the unincorporated areas of the county. And so this, we believe, will streamline that. Our biggest concerns were in the methods of messaging and the opportunities to do education in the aftermath of such a change, and some of the things that Ty alluded to that I think for some of the highest risk areas and populations, that will be efforts well spent to make sure that safety is an emphasis. To a couple of the comments that were made regarding increased densities, we certainly understand in the fire service that that is a risk at some level. This does not in any way offset or negate those things that already exist in both the building and the fire codes that do require certain setbacks and things for recreational fires and other burning activities. So with that said, I'm happy to express our support and our willingness to continue forward in the effort should you choose to make this change in the ordinance, that we would love to continue that partnership and how it's messaged and educated in the public.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to provide comment, please raise your hand. Dan, are there any telephone participants that we should just ask to speak up?
There are not.
Okay. So just give another second. If you're having trouble finding the hand raised, unmute and just give me a shout if you'd like to speak. Okay, seeing no one else wishing to provide public comment, the public hearing is closed. And so I'd like to, there's a couple questions that came out, and if it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and ask staff to address the questions first, and then we'll move to any other questions from the board or discussion with the board. Does that sound okay to everyone? Okay, and it would really benefit me if the board had their camera on, just to say, while we're having this discussion. So I tracked 3 questions. And Robin can help me if I'm 4. Okay, so you'll add the 4th one. So around whether this proposal is around the homeless, houseless situation or not.
Sure. So it's an element of it, but I would say that that is not the sole reason we're making this change. And we have recognized, I mean, as from your experience, it's not very well necessarily known that this has been a regulation in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, and it was enacted back in the 80s or in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was part back in the time when we were not meeting air quality standards. A lot of things were done, Frank, but as I talked about, well, so I won't repeat what I said before, but the homelessness is a part of it, because we got into it recognizing, as Ty Gundel mentioned, that we were trying to support some of what was going on and encouraging safe burning, survival burning, but at the same time telling residents that they can't burn. So that didn't seem very equitable. So that's why actually the board made the decision to look and asked us to look at this rule, saying, hey, well, let's look at repealing it, not just making an exception for survival burning in among the unhoused, but look at it for everybody in the 3 cities. So again, that's an element of it, but I'd say it's much broader than that.
And then the next one was, what would the citation cost have been under current rule?
Mike, can you?
I don't want to overstep Robert, but okay. We have a fine structure. It's based on several different things. It can be from $100 up to several $1,000s. Oh, I should take this all the time. $100 to several $1,000s. And I'm not saying a campfire would be several $1,000s, but that is the range, and it all varies on lots of different things. The fines, how many people were bothered? Was it prohibited materials in it? Have you been talked to before? So I can't give you a quote. It starts at $100 and then it goes up. And it would depend on all these factors. Have you been, again, talked to before? Prohibited material, how big is it? Is it a campfire that's 3 feet, or is it a campfire that's 10 feet? I mean, which I know that shouldn't be a campfire, but we've seen them. And to address, but like it was said earlier, those are complaint driven. We're not out there driving around looking for this. We got way too many things to do, lots of territory. So the fact that you didn't know probably meant that, I'll say now, that you probably were burning cleanly. You're not bothering your neighbors. You weren't creating a smoke nuisance, because if we had a complaint, we would have been at your place or sent you a merge letter. We would have contacted you and said, sorry, sir. You're doing a fire brush. It's all good, but it's not allowed in the city limits.
Really, the only real smoke is when a marshmallow catches on fire.
Well, yeah, so
If you're doing it safe.
Ridiculous.
You're doing the good thing and addressing the other gentleman's concern as far as the fines and the complaints. If there are smoke issues, again, complaint driven. If we get complaints, we can't get to every single complaint. We cover the 6 counties, but our policy is to always make contact with the person who is causing the issue. Try to make contact with the person who complains. I can't say that, we're 100% on that. Again, we're 4 people going to, 4 counties all over. But, so again, we do respond to the complaints. And had you had a neighbor complaint that was bothered by the smoke, we would have been there.
I told all my neighbors who have fires about this, they said they were shocked too. They said, what? We've been illegal for 45 years? It's ridiculous.
So I have one more on my list, and that's just to compare kind of commercial overlay around like fast food or other small or operations compared to how we would regulate in someone's backyard.
So our authorities during burn bans, first, there's this, what's stage 1 burn ban, stage 2 burn bans. We shut down home heating. That does not, you're right, does not extend to commercial. I don't believe that we have the authority to shut down Burger Kings or pizza ovens, that sort of thing. So,
because they're not considered a source from our perspective.
Right, yes.
They burn different.
There were 2 separate issues. And I think that's what you were alluding to, is the outdoor burning is wood fired. The Burger King in specific is not a wood fired issue.
It's when those stagnant days that you asked me to shut my wood stove down, and I do, and I get in my truck and I drive by all the hundreds of Burger Kings and go, what am I doing?
There's still some opacity issue rules in the state, that just the thickness of smokes, but the shutdown of the burn ban you're referring to in the winter refers to solid fuel devices. So it is only the wood, the brush burning. It doesn't pertain to any gas fired, any flames, and that's where the Burger King would fall under. So now granted, there are smoke rules for how they smoke.
So the burning flash is okay.
Well, it is not a solid fuel.
I get it.
Okay, good responses. And so now what I'm going to do is go to board members and ask if there are any other questions or comments. I think we can keep it to comments and kind of do our discussion before there's a motion, unless someone has a preference to change that. So questions from the board. Greg.
Yes. I appreciate folks giving testimony today, and I want to just acknowledge all the written testimony that we got too. I did look through that, and it was very interesting to get that. I was wondering if staff could respond to the other testimony we had, oral testimony about what's the response is. It's not quite pertinent to the hearing at hand, but what's the response to complainants? Is there what's the past practices? Do we reach out to the people that make the complaint as well as the people that have the possible nuisance smoke?
We try to, if I may, sometimes we get anonymous complaints and we can't reach out back to them. But if we have a phone number or an email, we try to respond to them. A lot of times saying, we'll be out there to check it out, or we'll be sending a letter. If you have more complaints, please give us a call. Because a lot of times the first response is going to be education. We're going to educate. We're not going to have the resources to go out there and do a face-to-face the first time. If the letter and the brochure and stuff that Dan's made does get the message across, everybody's happy it's done. So we try to, but again, I won't say we're 100%. On certain days we get scattered, we're going everywhere. But yeah, it is our policy to try to, if we have contact information, to get back to them and let them know. And sir, if we haven't, I'm sorry if we have your information, but we do try to get back to the person and let them know what we've done.
Great,
Randy. Oh, go ahead, Randy. Is he frozen? Randy appears
very
to be
pensive.
He looks frozen. Yeah. Other questions from the board? Comments from the board? Robin?
I mean, I can just affirm what the gentleman in the audience, Mr. Carr, and also our fire chief said. I don't know that I was aware of the regulation not prohibiting recreational burning until I sat on this board. And then I learned and I changed my behavior, but I would have fires in my backyard as well. So I think this is a neat opportunity for us to identify a rule that we've had for a long time that some people are unaware of, and that also isn't serving the purpose that it was designed to serve, which is to reduce the particulates in the air that cause pollution, right? It's not, we can see that that's not the cause of the pollution that affects our air quality. And so us reducing this or like taking away these rules is really a cool opportunity to just take away regulation that's not serving its purpose and make it easier for homeowners to do what they've been doing all along, or to, you know, enjoy the physiologically beneficial impacts of having small, well-managed fires. So I'm excited about this rule change.
Other questions or comments from the board? Randy, are you back with us?
You're muted, Randy.
There you go.
Are you calling on me now?
Yes, I did before, but you were frozen.
Yeah, sorry about that. I lost everything there for a minute. Had to go back to my phone. Wanted to point out that it's still not trash or anything else. We're not changing those rules that have nothing to do with what we're putting forward here. I also wanted to clarify, as we said before, because it was said that we're changing the rules for Lacey and such. We're not changing their rules. We're changing our enforcement of it, whether we would enforce it. Currently, everybody else, except for those municipalities, are allowed to do the regular burns outside of times when nobody can burn. For example, the city can place their own restrictions anytime that they want, but it doesn't mean that our purpose as ORCAA is to put together something that is specific to municipalities and enforce things that should be their rules or regulations to put together. So with that, I believe that this rule has outlived its purpose, because it was put in for a purpose. It's outlived its purpose, and now that it no longer exists, that reason, I'll be voting in favor of the change and allowing the local entities to do their own rules that they wish to put on their own areas.
Thank you, Randy. Carolina?
Thank you. I want to go back to comments about air quality that were brought up, and you know how this would affect air quality. And I believe when we were first discussing this, we discussed, I believe it was Seattle or King County, and how they changed their rules too, and it didn't really impact it. And was it Tacoma? I'm trying to remember which city it was where they did the change and they were monitoring to see it. And so I was wondering if staff could kind of talk about kind of that data and kind of what Tacoma or Seattle, I'm not sure which place it was, and kind of the impact of air quality in those areas.
So I can say a few words and then maybe turn it over to Odell, our senior air monitoring specialist. But I mean, I think the data that we showed when we talked about this back in maybe May or June was we just compared Lacey data with, I think it was maybe Renton or Auburn, looking at, again, at South King County, where we saw no difference in ambient air quality. So I don't know, anything else to add to that, Odell? I think you put the slide.
Summer, for sure, that's true, and you know, they're gonna have a much higher traffic component than we do, but yeah, there wasn't a significant difference in, especially for summertime, which is when most people are having campfires. I suppose there could be a few in the winter, but we just didn't see any real difference between the summertime air quality in their more suburban areas that are more comparable. So what I did was try to pick communities that were comparable to Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, not downtown Seattle, obviously, or some of the more industrial areas. And yeah, they range within the uncertainty of the instrument. So there is no statistically significant difference between us and them.
Jill, you mentioned Tacoma's non-attainment. I think that was like 2009. Tacoma went into non-attainment, and that source of their non-attainment for particulate matter 2.5 was wood stoves. They did a lot of work on wood stove replacements and restrictions. Never once during their non-attainment years did they restrict recreational fires.
That's what it was. Okay.
Okay,
So
yeah.
both of us were ahead of recollection. So thank you. Good clarification, Dan. Jill.
I was just going to point out that while we are probably getting rid of the enforcement phase of this within the cities. They still can do whatever. But also, if you live in the city and you live in a HOA, you need to check the rules there too, because they might have rules that, you know, the rules go up. The smaller it is, the stricter the rules could be. So something else to check.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for people that live in HOAs, Jill, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you have 2 feet between houses, they might have those kind of rules already that what we do doesn't change what those rules are.
Good point. Greg?
Yeah, I guess I just want to weigh in support of this rule change. I think ORCA's done a really good job at reaching out, and it means a lot that the fire chiefs are supportive of this. You know, if there's a policy, as I think Robin and others have said, that people don't know and is difficult to enforce and makes the landscape more challenging to keep people safe, it's good to revisit that. While I appreciate the outreach that's happened, I do, you know, looking at the ORCA website, I confirmed that our public hearing didn't list the time or location, and I'm just wondering if we should extend that public hearing. I don't know if it was listed in the Olympian or what our record is, but I just want to make sure that we give everyone an opportunity to weigh in on what I think is a really good rule change.
We can certainly look at that. I mean, I'll talk to the ORCA team and see. I mean, I think we did meet, so I can't offer. I don't have a copy of what was in the Olympian in front of me, but I know we published in the Olympian. There was the article, but there was also a legal notice in the Olympian that I'm quite confident had the date and time for the public hearing. So I mean, I think we've met our legal requirements. But yeah, certainly outreach is something that we're constantly looking at to improve. And so I appreciate the comments that we've gotten today. It's a work in progress, but
and so the post on our website does have a hyperlink to our board meeting, where it says it's a regularly scheduled meeting of the board of directors, that links to the meeting page. So that was the
right.
Yeah, I think my read is you have to go all the way to the agenda before you see the time if you're going through the website.
Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah, so appreciate the feedback. We'll look to how we can be more clear, and you shouldn't have to click on the link to know what the time is. It should be, you know, clearly identified on the web and at various places. So
I'm gonna ask 2 follow-up questions for Greg. First of Jeff around any operational concerns of waiting on a decision until next month?
No.
Okay.
No.
And then Jeff Myers, could I open up the public hearing again for written record for another month, or we would just ask for it in writing and then consider it before a decision?
You have the discretion to hold open the public hearing or reconvene the public hearing, or extend the comment period to next month. I think you have certainly that discretion if you feel that people have been excluded from the opportunity to comment. And the lack of a time in the published notice would be a reason to do that. I think it depends. The legality of things and the adequacy of the notice would normally be judged by what the legal notice was that was published in the Olympian. And my understanding is that information is in the legal notice.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And so Greg, can I ask you to hold that request, and we'll kind of finish questions and discussion for right now, and then talk about whether we're deciding today or next month?
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joan.
Thank you. I just wanted to second or third or say amen or something to my colleagues who have said that they support this. We've had a lot of discussion about this in the city of Tumwater, council, mayor, city administrator, and our fire officials. And our fire chief is positive about this change. And so in representing all of them and appreciating my colleagues here in the discussions we've had, I'm wholeheartedly supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Chief Brooks, are you still on? I have a question for you.
Yes, sir, I am.
I'm supportive of this, but I also very much see the concerns around density and fire safety conversations and wondered if it would make sense from your perspective for the fire chiefs to work with the cities and the county to look at a sort of a blanket idea around fire safety regulations around outdoor burning recreationally that we might be able to bring back and propose to our local councils and the county commission. Does that make sense in your mind from your job role?
Well, I can probably only limited speak. So I did participate with staff at the discussions at the Lacey City Council. And I know that was a discussion there about whether there were perceived needs from the code enforcement side. And my interpretation of what was said, and I want to in full disclosure say, fire chief, I will not purport myself to be a code expert on the international fire and building codes, but it felt to me like, and Dr. Johnson may have heard it differently, but it felt like they inferred that what was existing in the international fire and building codes was deemed to be universally adequate or acceptable. But again, that would not preclude any city council from reviewing that and having a more stringent code. I believe all three of the cities have adopted both international building and fire codes in their if not latest iterations, at least the latest one that has been adopted at the state level. So certainly could take that back to your code enforcement officials from the fire side for a fire safety perspective. But I know there is existing language in both the fire and building code regarding the necessary setbacks and other protections around that.
Okay, so it might just be a review and some clarification in our education materials if at a minimum, and maybe a bigger policy conversation. Okay. Does that match up with your read on that code?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, from the conversations that we've had with City of Lacey folks, yes, I believe that that's consistent. And so yeah, we can certainly look at the International Fire Safety Code, look at what those setbacks are. And Dan and I have been talking about what's the outreach we need to do. And so including some of that information in there is worth doing. We can do that, and we can reach out to folks and have more discussions about this.
Okay. Yeah, and I know both Joan and Robin and I, from the more dense parts of the county, definitely will make sure that we at least do that policy review and then look at whether there's an opportunity for some sort of countywide policy that we all look at adopting if we need to enhance it at all. Okay. I really appreciate the 2.5 foot. I'm trying to imagine that, and I don't think that well, other than the downtown high density corridors, I don't think that we go that short. So, okay, are there any other questions or comments around the topic? Okay, so I'm going to go now to the action at hand. Want to just see, my gut says it would benefit us to wait a month and leave ask for continued public input and have a comment period open until the Friday before our next meeting. So I'm going to ask maybe Dan to scramble to a calendar and figure that out before I get an agreement from my board. Anybody object to that or think we should move forward today?
Jim, this is Greg. I guess I raised the objection, but I did reach up the Olympia and the public notice, and it does clearly talk about the physical location, the virtual option, and the date and time. So, you know, I guess I feel better about moving forward if that's the will of the body. I'm not sure if there's a consequence to delaying it and giving more public feedback, but I do feel like we've gotten a substantial amount with over 20 written testimonies and the public ones, the oral ones we've gotten today. So my concerns are allayed.
That's helpful, and I appreciate you combining this public hearing with what we received in writing, maybe bigger volume than all but one instance in my time on ORCAA. So anybody else feel like we should delay, or are you okay with Greg feeling appeased on that Randy?
I'm comfortable with moving forward. I did the same research he had done, and I looked at the articles that was in the paper. There has been plenty of notice and plenty of things said about it. And although we did not do properly on the website, I don't think we legally have to. I think we've worked this. I think it's time to move forward. I'm okay with it. I'm okay if we hold off too, but I'm okay with moving forward right now.
Carolina?
Even though kind of we did what we were supposed to, just with that notice on the website, I would feel more comfortable just waiting a month. I don't see the damage in that, right? Besides receiving more public comment, which is not a bad thing. So, you know, just to make sure that even though our ducks are in a row, just to kind of go that extra step, I think it would be a good thing. And then updating our notice on the website to actually reflect the location and the link.
Okay.
So is there, can I ask a question? Is there any additional? So the written, so that the public comment period stays open. So are we looking at taking public comment at the next meeting as well, or just opening, or just continuing or allowing folks to submit written comments up until the Friday before? Or
Yeah, that's what I was proposing. If we did delay, is written comment only until 5 p.m. on the Friday before. So staff have time to bring it together and get it to us in time for a Wednesday meeting. We have a big business agenda already that Wednesday, so I'd like to refrain from having another verbal comment period.
Okay, so we could certainly do that. Are there, in terms of additional outreach that, I mean, we'll update the website. Dan can push out information through our social media channels and things. Are there additional suggestions for how we would get the word out about the extended public comment period folks have?
I think just our regular channels feels good to me, and just making clear that, you know, we're extending it because we had a couple places where we didn't have the full information, and we want to make sure that we provide that opportunity. Joan, I see your hand up. I want to make sure I don't finalize this before we hear from you.
Well, I'm with Greg and Randy. I'm ready to vote today. I think putting staff and adding more staff time on the ORCAA end for this and written comments and so forth. I think 20 responses. I read those also. I think we've done it. I think we've covered it. And now if it's just cleaning up some edges about it or educating, I'm ready to go.
Okay. Mr. Myers, you have the final say.
I believe that the board has the final say, and given that the legal notice had the time and place of the hearing, I don't believe that your notice was inadequate, and I don't believe a legal challenge would hold up. It's really up to the discretion of the board.
Okay, thank you. Mike, and then Randy, and then I have one of our residents in the room with a hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize him after Randy for a quick question.
Thanks. I know I'm jumping in midstream on the issue. I tried to catch myself up on the written documents that were in the board packet. I would be comfortable moving forward on this today. And from my position, you know, I'm supportive of the rule change in that the original impetus for the rule change, I don't really believe exists anymore. So.
Thank you, Mike. Randy?
My problem is I wanted to make a motion and I don't want to cut off the other person first. So will you take me after the other person's comment, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you for reconsidering the item of the hour of the meeting being posted. But I think you're under the same rules as other general government. I don't see ADA accessibility. I don't know how you get a wheelchair up these steps. I think those type of statements have to be in the public notice as well.
We do have the ability from the front door for that. So just so you know, it might not be obvious here, but we would have helped someone if we needed, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you for that. I appreciate that comment because that's just as important as access to make comment.
Can I make another comment?
Sure, if it's brief.
No lady left. You know, as far as I know, there's 2 air monitoring stations here in South Sound. The issue is the smoke coming in your bedroom window as a nuisance, even if it's clean smoke. If somebody has a breathing situation, summertime, 30% of the homes here have air conditioning. It's in people's houses. You know, they may feel uncomfortable about complaining about their neighbor, but it's a courtesy. It's a problem 1-to-1.
So I'm gonna ask if our Odell would like to talk about the new and enhanced air monitoring web we now have with the private and public resources.
So air quality sensors, especially for PM 2.5, are becoming increasingly more affordable and available to the public. The lowest cost one that I know of right now is the Purple Air, and it is actually, it's not the lowest cost. The ambient air is lower, it's $79, but it doesn't work very well. It works well if it's dry, but it responds to fog. So the Purple Air monitor, we've been testing extensively and it seems to work quite well, and it runs you just under $300. And it's an Internet of Things that connects wirelessly to the internet. And you don't have to necessarily purchase one. You can go to purpleair.com and look at their map and zoom in on your neighborhood, and maybe your neighbors have one that you can access, and you can access their data as well. I've been crowdsourcing, and we have a few that I have installed in some areas.
And is that enforceable? No, that's not.
No,
enforceable.
it's for your information, and we can use that data if we get a complaint. If we get a nuisance complaint, I can go and look at that data, and it's just a piece of evidence we can use, but it's not an enforceable data. And of course, we can't have monitors, you know, in every neighborhood. We just don't have the resources for that manpower or financially. So yeah, our monitors, and I do evaluate our monitor against the regional other sensors that are available so that I can see how representative our monitor is of the ambient air as a whole. But of course, you're always going to have a problem if you have one chimney with smoke going directly onto a property. That's a very hyper localized event. And we can't monitor for that. We don't have the resources for that.
Much more about the nuisance at that.
But at that point, we would respond to a nuisance complaint.
Thank you for that. Good questions. Randy, I'm assuming I should let our attorney go again before you.
If you like, I myself, I don't see where in any of these hearings there's a back and forth process for a citizen to argue with our staff and such. So I'd like to.
No, thank you. I was just taking it as questions, but I do appreciate that. Jeff, any last comment before I consider a motion coming to the floor?
I'll be brief. It's good to see Jim Oberlander. Jim was with the Department of Ecology when I was a baby lawyer back in the mid-'80s. He's distinguished environmental service, speaks for itself. But I do want to emphasize to the board that this rulemaking change does not authorize nuisance burning. Nuisance burning is unlawful in all cities and would continue to be unlawful in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. What this rule does is it allows recreational fires as long as they are not nuisance fires and they meet the standards for recreational fires. You could have, under the current rule, a clean burning, non-nuisance recreational fire and still be breaking the law. And like our other witness at the board, I didn't know that until I became legal counsel for ORCAA. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, not to mention the number of people who thought it was legal as long as they had a marshmallow or a hot dog on the stick, right? Okay, Randy, it's yours. Show us what you got.
So just a quick comment, though, that recreational fires, we're not changing anything except for the allowing ORCAA not to enforce our enforcement over the fact of these specific laws. I can't speak today. And rules.
Correct.
The cities again
correct.
can do anything. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I would like to move forward for the approval of these changes as presented. Exactly.
Okay, we have a motion.
I second.
Sorry, was that Jill?
Yes.
Okay, and I have a motion from Randy and a second from Jill. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Now, I believe there are a little bit of next steps in this, or can you tell us where it goes from here, Jess?
So next steps, we have some paperwork, so we will move forward with making this rule change. We need to, again, there's a few things related to filing the paperwork with the state code revisor. We need to do a formal, concise explanatory statement responding to comments. We'll get the paperwork filed with the code revisor in the coming weeks. And then the rule change, so will be effective 30 days after that, unless there's a desire to extend it out further, but it has to be at least 30 days. But it's my recommendation would be that the rule change becomes effective 30 days after that. And let me look for Robert. Is there anything else worth mentioning in terms of process wise?
31 days, but 30 is close enough.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions on that? That's been a long discussion for us, and I'm sure now we'll get into the educational and outreach discussion as we move along into that implementation.
Yes, yeah, because as we've talked about all along, this is primarily a communication issue. And so Dan and I have been talking a lot about that. And so expect that at the February meeting, we'll have some sample information to share with you, some brochures that again, we'll be working with fire officials and others on. So now that we've reached this milestone, the implementation, we'll be talking about the implementation issues.
Okay, great. And so then I'm gonna take us to our next agenda item, which is the unfinished business around the OLIMAP funding approval. I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff, but really quick, Greg, can you take the gavel on this meeting for a moment? I need to excuse myself just for a minute, but I should be back before we take any action. Jeff and I have discussed this a lot, so.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is, again, I'm asking the board to approve ORCAA spending $6,000 to pay for 4 community cleanups in Thurston County homeless camps. Again, we talked a little bit about this back at the December meeting, provided a little bit of context because actually that was the day that I was meeting with the Thurston Regional Housing Council later in the day. So I know this came up. I put together there's a board briefing with the specific request, a little bit of context and some links to some additional documents about why we're doing this and kind of how this kind of fits in to a broader response to complaints that we get from some of the homeless camps in town, in Olympia specifically. So I guess maybe at this point, open it. I mean, that's what I have, unless folks have specific questions about what this is or why we're doing it. I can answer any questions.
I think the briefing that you provided was very clear, but any questions or comments?
I do. I just have a comment. I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand. I'm driving.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to kind of let the ORCAA board know that the county, Thurston County did approve yesterday the MOU with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners. So we kind of gone ahead and completed that part of the process and kind of just waiting on this piece.
Great. And let me, one thing I can clarify is that Lynn and I have had conversations through Jim. We're working with Olympia City Solid Waste. And so in terms of providing the dumpster service, the cleanup costs. So we're working on the exact financial mechanism. Back when I think we talked about this in December, I thought it was probably going to be an interlocal agreement with Thurston County, but I don't think we won't need to do that. We're working kind of on some simpler ways of transferring the money for the supplies and for the dumpster service and for the tipping fees.
Great.
What
One question. Oh, go ahead.
What's Thurston County's role in this? Just curious. Carolina. You said the MOU, are they providing funding? What?
Yeah, so
because we have this situation with Aberdeen and, trying to figure out where we fit in.
yeah, so basically Thurston County gives all of our homelessness money to the Regional Housing Council. And out of that, there we had a set aside for 200,000. The Regional Housing Council approved basically 112,000. Jeff, is that correct?
Yeah,
It was
think
around
it's-
111, 112,000.
Yes.
To kind of fund this program and partnership with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners as well as with ORCAA. So
And
that's,
so-
yeah.
So, and there was a link, I mean, in that briefing document, there's a link to the broader proposal, Jill, so you can read about what that larger proposal is that we worked on with OLIMAP, and it's hiring some additional staff to do additional outreach, education in these communities to try to hopefully change some behavior long-term. And then what specifically the part that ORCAA is funding is strictly paying for some camp cleanups to try to remove the amount of garbage that's in two specific communities in Olympia where we receive the highest number of complaints, smoke complaints from.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Jill, we will be, one of the main or aspects of this pilot project is that we want to collect data on whether this is really working or not. So I think that the data collected will be useful for your county if that's like an interest moving forward. But that was kind of one of the big things that we wanted to know is like, will this work? What is the impact? So just for the future.
Thank you.
I guess I should say something because I'm back, but I was waiting to see if Greg was going to keep this agenda item, so.
I saw you back, so I defer to you, Chair. I do have one question, if I may, and I'm just curious, and this is a question, I guess, for Carolina or anyone else. I love the harm reduction approach with mutual aid programs, and wondering if clean dry firewood is going to be part of this program to, give them something else to burn as well as taking away the garbage.
We've talked, I can jump in and answer that. We've talked about that. I mean, OLIMAP and ORCAA have had a conversation with local fire officials. Fire officials are interested in reducing the amount of propane in these communities. And so again, partly by changing this ORCAA rule would allow the notion of having firewood banks or something else potentially, but nothing, I don't think any specific decisions have been made as far as I know of what that is going to look like. I mean, I think it's a lot of blankets, a lot of supplies, warming supplies, that kind of thing.
Good question, though. Any other questions on the proposal? Okay, and you're asking for board action?
No, not well, just to approve spending $6,000. Again, it's a small amount, but just because this is it's a new approach that ORCAA is taking on this, thought it worth having a board discussion just to ensure that board was on board with moving this forward.
So for consideration would be a motion to approve $6,000 expenditure for the camp cleanup partnership with OLIMAP in Thurston County. Is there a motion?
I have a comment, but I can make it after Joan makes the motion.
I just want to say so moved. I'm ready to.
I'll second, and then I just wanted to comment that in Jefferson County recently, we had a sort of a similar situation, not a big encampment, but a lot of solid waste accumulation that turned into a raging inferno, and really appreciate addressing this problem, at the source. So I think this is good work. This is a good focus for ORCAA's efforts.
I agree. For all of my colleagues in other counties to echo that, get on this conversation now, because we've had quite a few of those and they've kind of been tragic. So it's really an important piece and a role that we can help, I think, play while we have so many unsheltered people. So so a motion and a second. Are there any further comments, questions, or discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And so then I talked to Jeff for a few minutes and Lynn prior to this. And so what we're gonna do is have the finance committee at next month's meeting, talk about whether we need to amend our budget or not. Financially, we're okay and we should be fine from the bottom line of the expenditure and revenue side. But the question would be whether we should add a new line item for this new program while it's a pilot or not. So the finance committee will discuss that. If you have comments, now's the moment to throw them out there, or you can wait and see what we come up with. Randy?
Yes, I'd like to throw out the comment for them to consider also before we go to a finance committee meeting, since I sit on that. The idea that we should have a fund for programs like this that could fall underneath the director's purview, as long as it does not exceed $10,000. This would keep it from having to be so difficult each and every time something like this comes up, because this seems like something that our director could have moved forward with advice and consent of the board instead.
I agree, Randy. Thank you for that. Yeah, some sort of education and outreach programmatic budget enhancement feels right to me, but we'll see. I know this will not quite 100% in line with what I just said, but might be a good fit. So thank you. Any other comments? Okay, that will then take us into director's reports. And you know, it says Mike's doing it for Robert, but I see Robert, so I'm going to Mike because he pointed at him. He's the boss.
Yeah, that's true. Got a point there. Okay, so I'll try to be real fast, talk fast, quick, but make sure I'm clear. Okay, as you guys normally have it, B5 was the section for compliance update. Point out a few quick things, and then I'll be here to answer any questions. If I can't answer them, got my right-hand man over there, or left-hand man on this side. Quick thing is land clear and burn permits. You'll notice there was only, I think, 21. But it's typically our slow period because of the holidays and stuff. So we expect that to pick up this month now for the next 6 months until the burn ban. So you'll probably see more land clear and burns, but that was a slow period for us. We had a source test for specific pollutant mercury emissions up at McKinley up there in Port Angeles at the end of very end of November, first part of December. And they have recently installed some control equipment to help bring the mercury down. So that's a good thing. You also notice when you go through the NOV section that you might see multiple, about 25 petrol card violations and about 11 Safeway violations. Those are not emission violations. Those are violations for failing to pay registration on time. I won't get into all the specifics during the public meeting, but open meeting, but yeah, basically the registrations have been paid, and I just, because there were so many of them, make sure you get, that wasn't an emission related thing. It was a paperwork related thing that they failed to pay within a couple months of their time. It had gone a while. So they were issued a violation notice for not paying on time. But they have all paid their registration now at this point. So that's a real quick update. I'm open for questions, comments.
I just say, can you address the very large NOVs for Crown, Cork, and Seal in Olympia, since it stands out on this form?
It's my understanding that I'll just a generic brief thing, but we don't want to get into specifics. They're still open. They have not been resolved.
Oh, if you need to wait, that's fine with me.
Yeah, but there have been some actions, I can tell you that, and several of them there. And we'll actually have meetings scheduled with Crown to discuss the follow-up actions. There were several things basically based on an expansion and a yearly investigation that we found several items off.
Okay, perfect. That's good enough for now. Thank you. Any other questions on this report? Sorry, I just went there right away because it was bigger than I think I've ever seen. Okay, thank you, Mike. Thanks for backing him up. Good job, Robert.
He taught me well. Give Robert credit.
Mark, for an engineering report.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'll talk fast and make short work of this as well. Under tab B6, you'll find the list of businesses and industries that have construction permits or air operating permits in-house that the agency is reviewing. And so if you see any of these pending permit applications, that is, in your area, and you want information on them, I've got plenty of information. But what I just want to focus in on one right now, and Mike touched on it, and that's McKinley Paper. You'll see them, let's see, they're on the bottom of page 2, McKinley Paper.
Hey, Dan, can you share that document, please, for those that don't have it immediately available?
Oh, okay. Thanks, sir. I could share it too.
Okay, I'll get it up here. Hang on.
Okay. So McKinley Paper ends up on, first of all, McKinley Paper is a large recycled pulp and paper mill in Port Angeles. They are a major source of several pollutants, including particulate and oxides of nitrogen. By major, what I mean.
Sorry, Dan, can you make that a bit bigger? A bit bigger still. Yep. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and Dan, if you could scroll down, they actually have, let's see, they might have two. Scroll down to the second McKinley entry, which should say powdered activated carbon unit. Okay.
Is that it?
So McKinley Paper, a large pulp and paper mill in Port Angeles. They emit by major, that means that they emit over 100 tons per year of a regulated pollutant. In the case of McKinley, there's several pollutants that they emit well over 100 tons per year. So they're subject, because of that, they're subject to an air operating permit. And there was a stack test in 2021 where they found that they were exceeding the federal mercury limits. And I believe Mike was actually present at that stack test. The agency moved forward and took an enforcement action by issuing a notice of violation. And we have been working with McKinley to come up with a solution to attain, to achieve compliance. What they did immediately was they curtailed their burning of wastewater treatment plant sludge, which is burned with their biomass fuel in their boiler. Sludge only makes up a small percentage of their overall fuel, but they've thought immediately that it was possible that the sludge was the reason why they were exceeding the mercury limit. So they curtailed sludge on their own. But we've been working with them, and they, through their studies, they came up with a proposal to install what's called a powdered activated carbon system. And what this does is it injects activated carbon into the flue gas stream, and that activated carbon essentially sequesters the mercury and then and renders it in a particulate form that it can be removed in a subsequent, a downstream particulate removal device called an electrostatic precipitator, which is a very highly efficient particulate removal device. So you inject the carbon in, it sequesters the mercury, you take it out in the electrostatic precipitator. So they proposed to test out a temporary powdered activated carbon system, and we were agreeable to that. And in the course of testing it, they also did a stack test. They verified that yes, this powdered activated carbon system does work quite effectively. By quite effectively, let me give you some numbers. They're emitting, from our calculations, between 2 and 2.5 pounds of mercury a year. With this powdered activated carbon system, we believe the reduction is around 2.1 pounds per year. And it's enough for them, it's enough to achieve compliance with the limit, which is a very, very low limit. The federal limit for them is 8.0 e to the -7. So that's 0.000008 pounds of mercury per million BTU of fuel burned. So they have an extremely low limit, yet this powdered activated carbon system is necessary for them to achieve compliance with this limit. Okay, so the testing has been done and it looks positive. The next step is that we said, okay, if you want a permanent PAC unit, powdered activated carbon unit, that triggers a requirement for a permit. That's why they show up on this list here. And we're in the process of reviewing their application for permanent approval of a PAC unit. In the meantime, they have been operating on this temporary unit. Once we approve their application for a permanent PAC unit, they will remove the temporary, put in the permanent. The permanent will be more sized to meet their needs and will be easier to operate. You may ask yourselves, why are we requiring a permit for such a thing? And well, because it's an air pollution control device that may have other effects on the other emissions coming from McKinley paper. Particularly, we've been concerned with its effect on particulate emissions, because they also have particulate limits, and you're injecting this powder into the flue gas stream. But based on the preliminary testing, they have told us that they're going to easily meet those particulate limits. We will, of course, verify through testing the next time in early 2023 that they are required to test. Another question you may have is, where's the mercury going? Well, we believe that the mercury is ending up in the ash and other particulate captured by this electrostatic precipitator. That ash is what they landfill that ash. And so there may be implications on their landfill permit. Mike and I have been working with the Department of Ecology concerning both the water permit for McKinley and their solid waste permit with McKinley. And the Department of Ecology staff person that we've been working with, who's in charge of these two particular permits, the water and the solid waste, has informed us that, yeah, they're all in favor of us proceeding with this approval. And so we could go forward. So that's where we're at. We're encouraged that we're seeing reductions in compliance with the limits. So I'll leave it at that. That's my only highlight from this list. And again, if you have questions regarding any of these, we could maybe take them after the meeting if you'd like, or now if you have a question. So thanks.
Okay. Any burning questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. We appreciate you elaborating on that one. It's certainly a fascinating piece of property from ORCAA's perspective in an ongoing way, right?
Yep.
Okay, with that, we're going to go to the air monitoring update from Odell.
All right, Dan's gonna put my slides up so this is the November and December summary, and as well as the annual summary for 2022. Next slide. So you can see here in November, predominantly good air quality days. You'll notice Port Angeles had 13 days in moderate, which is quite a few. And then Lacey had no days in moderate officially, but that is because our monitor broke right during a stagnant period that we had. Fortunately, we had a sensor. Actually, we have about 5 sensors that we're testing at the site, and one of them that tests quite well shows you what the data may have looked like had our monitor been working, where we had 8 moderate days in Lacey out of all of the days. And then down in Shelton, we had 6 and Aberdeen 1. So that's pretty typical. If you go to the next slide, I just want to show you really quickly, that is the sensor data compared with our nephelometer data, and that is the equation I used to calculate what our nephelometer would have said the data would have been had it been working. So that's a really excellent correlation, and that shows you how well those sensors work as long as you correct them for over prediction, because they do. And but other than that, they're very precise. They're just not very accurate. All right, next slide. This is our December data. We had a much higher data collection percentage at all of our sites. You'll notice we had, I can't see that, which is Chesapeake lost a day of data from a power outage, and I think it's on the screen, but
The data loss to the modem was, so that,
yeah. So was that at which?
that was at Fort Townsend.
And at Fort Townsend, we had a modem failure, which we've since replaced. So we lost a few days of data in Fort Townsend as well. But other than that, we had fairly good. We did have 1 USG at Chesapeake, which is typically our cleanest site in the entire country. That is because they are burning up there. And so there was they're doing a lot of logging and slash burning. And so we actually had 1 day where the smoke was impacting the site. If you go to the next slide, this is our Grace Harbor saturation study ongoing data. We have 3 purple airs that we've installed, and the rest I am crowdsourcing of public monitors in the region. One feature I just want to point out for this December month, you'll see a peak of green in the later half of the month, and that's at our Seaport site, which is right on the coast. Usually one of the cleanest sites, almost always 0. And on those particular days, there was something happening on the coast, all up and down. Oregon's coastal sites were reading high. All of our coastal sites were reading high. I don't know where it was trending from. I looked at the satellite data, but yeah, it was a really interesting phenomenon where all of the coastal, so it was real, and it was just all along the west coast of the country. So I don't know what was going on there. I also want to point out, I don't have any November saturation study data. Purple Air recently changed their method of making the data available to the public, and that for the download schematic. And so I didn't get any November data because it wasn't available. It is available now, and I should be able to have that data going out. I'm still looking into whether or not I can retrieve that November data once they fix all their issues, but I think they've outgrown, they've got so many people buying sensors now, and they've got so much data, they're having to find new ways to manage that data and make it available. Okay, next slide. Other monitoring news. So 2 site visits to Chesapeake to assist University of Washington with the Ascent instrument install. So we did, they got that funding, and they've been installing their analyzers up there. We've been making some changes to the shelter. I was also up there with the Department of Ecology for an audit. That was really interesting. I stayed an extra day to help with the Ascent install. And then on our 3rd day, we were evacuated at 6 o'clock in the morning because of a wildfire threatening the event in November. So that was weird. Also, the 2 site visits to Fort Townsend to fix the modem and the data logger. We did publish our request for proposals for the new Chesapeake shelter. We got 2 bids. One of them was over the budget. So we went with shelter 1. They're well known, they're within budget. And we are currently working on drawing up our purchase order for getting that ordered. And they should have it to us by next July, which is in line with when we want to start making the cleanups at that site. Mountain View is requiring more visits. In addition to all the sensors we have out there, we're also hosting a BAM, which is a federal equivalent method, PM monitor analyzer. It's a test site for that monitor right now to see how well it does. BAM stands for beta attenuation monitor. So it collects the particles on a filter and then uses attenuation from beta particles to determine what that mass is.
And Mountain View is the Lacey monitor, right?
Yes, Mountain View, Lacey, it's our Thurston County monitor. I already mentioned the saturation study updates with the purple air data. I also want to mention that we have one of our purple airs is solar powered. It was at Central Park. We didn't have power where we wanted to place the monitor, so we are testing solar panels with batteries, and it was working great up until about mid-October, and now it's struggling a little because it's not getting all the sun it needs. So we are still getting data as the sun pops out occasionally, but it may not be a good long-term solution. So that test is not really passing with flying colors. All right, next slide. This is just a picture of what the inside of our Chesapeake trailer looks like with all of UW's equipment on my workbench, which I will now be using the improv shelter for a workspace. So it's getting a little tight in there, but starting to look very high tech. Next slide. And this is a picture of the wildfire at 6 a.m. that we were evacuated out of Mia Bay for. So the cabins we were staying are actually on the other side of that ridge. And when I pulled out and looked at the mountain, I was really torn between wanting to take a picture and really needing to get the heck out of there. So I got the heck out of there and took the picture from the backside of the ridge. But yeah, one of the more interesting visits up there. And
So did that smoke show up on the monitor?
no, wind was in our favor, blowing it all out to the ocean, right over the cabins. So next slide. So this is our annual summary, just kind of shows you that what the annual average is, that average column right there at all of our sites. You can see the highest annual average we had was Port Angeles, and that's even with wildfires. And so with the, I didn't mention the max review.
I'll mention that in a few
Okay,
minutes.
but really quickly, the EPA is probably is in the process of changing the NAAQS annual average from 12 to somewhere between 9 and 10, or 9 or 10. So even at 9, you can see that we're going to be in pretty good shape with our annual average as those continue to go. I don't think I have anything else. Oh, other than we got more than 90% data completeness of all of our sites for 2022. So that's really good. Next slide. This is just a comparison of 2022 with 2021 for the Washington air quality goal with and without wildfire effects. The design value, which is the 98th percentile, so the 8th highest day that you would get for a daily average, they want that to be 20.4 micrograms per meter cubed or less. We are meeting that goal at all of our sites. With exception of Port Angeles, even without wildfires, we had 19.5 micrograms per meter cube, which is technically meeting the goal. That should be orange. I don't know why it's coming up as red, but it is meeting the goal, but it's really pushing that goal. So it's a good thing that we have expanded our wood stove changeout program to Port Angeles, and Dan can talk about that. But yeah, we're still having some air quality issues up there. That has not gotten worse, but it has not gotten better. So if you go to the next slide, oh, I don't have it on there. That's the main reason that Port Angeles, we tend to see air quality issues in the winter up there is how it's positioned with respect to the Olympic Mountains. And when you look at the wind maps, you often see this pocket of stagnation that just sits over Port Angeles, where we have really good ventilation and winds throughout the rest of the peninsula.
So it's like a big inversion zone.
Yeah, it just, the mountains kind of block the wind coming and they kind of go around and it just kind of, and then you have the cold air coming down off of Hurricane Ridge and the mountains that kind of push down and just create this little teeny pocket of stagnation, which can create air quality issues for Port Angeles in the winter. So that is all I have. Question?
Great. Questions for Odell? Okay, thank you very much. Fascinating.
Sorry, I was a little slow.
go ahead,
but
Mike.
I just want to say I love learning fun facts about my hometown. Thanks a lot.
I'm not sure this is a fun fact, but
More of an unsettling fact.
Yeah, well, we've been talking a lot about Port Angeles today with that air quality information, talking about McKinley.
well, it's how we welcome the new board. We just want to focus on there.
I do feel very welcomed. Thank you.
Great, thank you. that takes us to communications. Dan.
So lots of special projects. Website update is progressing. As you know, we're deep into our contract to replace our website with something updated and more user-friendly, more ADA accessible. Our target launch now is mid-February. We got confirmation from our designers this week that works for them too, and so we're now in the process of making sure our staff gets a chance to review the complete new site and comment on content and make suggestions on where things should go and how things are built out. So we'll have full staff have the ability to preview before we go live, and we're working on that. We're also working to make sure that the online forms are fully integrated into our database, so that when people input forms, whether it's for outdoor burning permits or asbestos and demolition notifications, that data is streamed directly into our database, and it will cut down on the need for redundant input by staff after we already have it in a website database. So lots of work there, but again, the progress is really exciting. A lot of work involved with a lot of moving parts from both our team and from the Rhizome Collective team. So looking forward to bringing that to you, at least in a pre-public launch method next month. I think if we have time, we can show it. Otherwise, in the March, we'll do a full rollout, and we'll do publicity. We're going to reach out to our partner agencies, so make sure that all of the public planning departments, all of the agencies we work with are aware of the change. And so if they have any internal links from their site to ours, if they go to internal pages, they'll be able to check and make sure that those are updated. So fortunately, I think our designer Rhizome Collective should be able to redirect some of those, so we can make sure that people that go to your planning departments are getting to where they need to go. If they're linking from your planning department's website to us, we should make that seamless, but we will reach out and let everybody know about that. Also working to revitalize the Northwest Air Quality Communicators Group. That's a coalition of all of my colleagues at the other local air agencies, the state agencies, as well as agencies in Oregon and Idaho. And the goal for this group has always been to share resources. We're all stretched remarkably thin, both in time and financial resources. So we're looking at doing joint projects. So we're sharing resources for the two big things we've got on the works are social media outreach plans, so that we can share resources in messaging and maybe even having multiple people that can share social media posting responsibilities to shared services. And then we're also looking at a big push for early summer for the Wildfire Smoke Ready Week, making sure our communities are prepared for upcoming wildfire smoke season, and that residents and communities have the resources they need to keep themselves safe and informed during those events as they come up for us. Let's see, wood stove replacement program is really taking off. It's remarkable that the second quarter of this fiscal year, so October through December, usually a really slow time for us because very few people are interested in pulling out their heating device during the start of winter. But we've actually had 33 replacements or recycling jobs done in those 3 months. And we are proud to say we've actually had projects in all 6 of our counties now. So people are taking advantage of the recycling award, even in our more remote counties. Pacific and Grace Harbor are taking good advantage of that. Mason and the Port Angeles area have done a lot of projects as well. So, and then finally, moving into the spring, we are going to be out in your communities with participation in various home shows, home and garden shows. I know we're scheduled to be at Port Angeles Home Show, probably the Jefferson County Builders Association up in Port Townsend. I think first week of March is that one. And then the Olympia Master Builders big home and garden show in Lacey that serves the Thurston and Mason County communities. So that's where we stand. And we covered a lot of my other work on the recreational fire stuff and working with Jeff on OLIMAP. So if you have any questions, hopefully now that we're rolling some of these projects off, we can get back to more direct communications and focus on getting the word out about ORCAA.
Questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan. I have 2 left and I have 10 minutes before the meeting with the rest of the staff team. So I just want to say that out loud and we'll do our best. I'm going to go to Lynn next for the financial update.
Good morning, all. Nice to see you. Unfortunately, you can't see me. I have a faulty camera. But it's nice to see y'all. Thanks for joining us today. I just have a couple updates. Keep them short. We did have the state auditor's office conduct their 2-year audit, fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022 of ORCAA's activities. They were here for a couple weeks and they were off site for a couple weeks. Unofficially, there are no findings, so yay. They are planning to conduct their exit conference and report at our February board meeting. And tenant space. Yes, we do have 1 vacancy right now in our office, and we're expecting 1 more next month. We have those advertised, so you know anyone looking for office space, please send them my way. Be happy to talk to them. We have a finance committee meeting next month in February, prior to our regular board meeting. So we'll be bringing the second quarter financial report, and we'll be discussing the OLIMAP funding strategy as well. And I can probably hold off on a few other things that I'll just talk about in February. Other than that, we're in good financial position, revenue and expenditures. Again, we'll bring the detail to you next month. Any questions from y'all?
Congratulations on no findings.
All right, thank you. Happy New Year, all. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Lynn, can you tell us about that big check you cut in December that you never have to cut again?
Sure. I know that Jeff Johnston had shared with the board and staff that last month's meeting, we have completely paid off our office building in West Olympia. Some of you are sitting there right now. Some of you will be dreaming of sitting there. So it's really a celebratory type of time for all of us, and no more principal and interest payments. We're really looking at improving, making some leasehold improvements in our office. We did start with the tenant space with changing out some of the flooring. It really looks beautiful. So for those who are present, maybe we can take you over and take a peek. But it's really a great time in ORCAA history. Building paid off, and again, we'll be able to make some of those improvements that are long needed. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jim.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm sorry, I forgot it was already said, or I wouldn't have wasted that time.
No, this is great. I'm happy to share it.
Said what wants to be said, yes. Okay, I'm gonna go to our director for his update.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll keep this very brief. You've already heard about a lot of stuff going on with the agency. We're pretty busy these days. Just a couple quick things. So as Odell mentioned, you might have seen some news articles. So end of last week, EPA put out their proposal for lowering the national ambient air quality standard for particulate for PM 2.5. As Odell mentioned, the current annual standard is 12, and they're looking at lowering it to between 9 and 10. They're gonna leave the 24-hour standard, which is at 35. They're expecting to leave that the same. But again, the proposal just came out. We're looking at the impacts on our communities, where do we stand, permitting implications, other things. So we'll talk more about this. I think it's tentatively slated for the March meeting, but we'll talk more about this and potential implications with you later. And then also just mention that as you met Tiffany Flores in the December meeting, she's our new records clerk, recently joined the team. I think at the December meeting, she'd been on staff for 3 days. Well, she's been very busy working with Debbie and Jackie and others, getting caught up on records, sending a lot of stuff to archives, launching a new product to scan all of our source files, and so move towards eventually towards electronic content management away from paper files. So we're very excited about that, excited about having Tiffany part of the team. I'm sure you're aware the legislature's back in session as of Monday, a long session. And so bills are still dropping. We haven't seen much to this point that would directly impact ORCAA and our work, but of course, we're keeping a very close eye on it. Have weekly meetings with other air directors, talk about legislative items. So there's be a meeting later this afternoon. Keep you posted on that. But I think that's all I have, just looking at the time and what you've already heard from our team. So unless there's any questions, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, questions for Jeff? Okay, look at that. We have anything for the good of the order? Hearing none, we have no executive session needs, correct? Okay, so that means that we are going to be adjourned until February 8th. And just a reminder that we will leave public comment. Oh, never mind, forget it. We didn't do that. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for sticking with this longer than normal meeting. Appreciate it.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hey, Jim,